coming up, and we'll talk about that later. However, for myself and the programming committee, I want to, indeed our board, I want to thank the National Civil Rights Museum for their generous partnership and offering us use of what was going to be a wonderful space. It would have been incredibly appropriate for us to gather for Black History Month at the historic location. However, I hope that you will sometime, not just this month, but throughout the year, visit the National Civil Rights Museum. Did I do good, Connie? Hope that was good. So now I'd like to introduce our wonderful moderator for today's panel and discussion on preserving the narrative, the role of communication in Black history, Jasmine Phillips. She is the founder and CEO of Phillips Media Agency, president-elect of Prsa Memphis. Jasmine, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Hey, everybody. I hope you all are staying nice and warm in your homes and safe. As Chris mentioned, we definitely had a great event planned for in person today, but we know that as long as we have technology and each other, we're going to be all right, right? So I would like to kick off our first, we have all of our speakers, and I'm going to call on our speakers and ask them to just briefly introduce themselves because I will do a disservice. They are all so talented, all have been doing some amazing things and are some great communicators here in our city. So again, welcome to our Black History Month program. And I'm going to first start by asking Connie Dyson, who is with the National Civil Rights Museum, to introduce herself first.
Thank you, Jasmine. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for what I think is an important conversation. I'm Connie Dyson, Director of Brand Marketing and PR at the National Civil Rights Museum. I've been at the museum for 16 years and have seen it grow and transition.
Connie, you still with us? Oh, looks like she having some technical difficulties. Jared Boyd with WYXR, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the group.
Hi, my name is Jared Boyd. A lot of people call me JB. I'm program manager of WYXR 91.7 FM. You may have seen it if you've strolled through Crosstown Concourse, right there in the lobby. Wave at our volunteer DJs if you have a moment to show them some love. I left the Daily Memphian in 2020 to co-found the station and continue to write about Memphis music primarily and culture.
Thank you so much, Jared. And also hotty toddy to Jared and any other fellow University of Mississippi alum on this call. I see quite a few, so this is great. Next up, we have Kirsten Cheers, who is representing KQ Communications. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the group.
Yes, hello. My name is Kirsten Cheers. I was trying to find my current title background, but I am the Deputy Director of Public Relations at KQ Communications here in Memphis, native Memphian, University of Memphis Central High School, Bellevue Junior High, Roselle Elementary. I go to church. I like long walks on the river. No, I'm just kidding. So I am very happy to be here and excited for our conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Mr. Larry Robinson, who is representing Kazuki.
Hello, everybody. Larry Robinson, Kazukian. We're events and content production company. Been working, starting in podcasting and back in 2014, 2015. So been at the content production arena for quite a while. And let me see. We got some good stuff happening. I got a selfless plug. Boys of Color Conference, March 29th. So that's a big deal for us as well. So that's where we are and that's what we're doing. And glad to be here. And thank you, Jasmine.
No problem. No problem at all. And I think we have Connie back. So Connie, if you can come back and reintroduce yourself to the group.
My apologies. Internet is fickle sometimes. I'm Connie Dyson, Director of Brand Marketing and PR at the National Civil Rights Museum. Have been at the museum for 16 years and have seen the evolution of an institution that has been a remarkable experience for me, and I'm sure my colleagues at the museum. We have a number of not just Black History Month programs, but all year round Black history and stories that we tell centered around Memphis and America and the civil rights struggle. And I hope that some of those stories can be lifted today and be impactful and for everyone in this session to communicate further. So my pleasure to be here with you all.
Thank you so much, Connie. And again, thank you to the National Civil Rights Museum for being a partner for this event and many other initiatives to come. So we look forward to this long-term partnership. So I'm going to kick off with our first question. And the question is, how does your role as a PR, communications professional, or journalist contribute to preserving the legacy of Black history here in Memphis? And I am going to start with Larry. You're lucky number one today.
Well, that's cool. I enjoy being number one. Uh, so for us at Kazuki and for myself personally as the leader of the company, um, my thoughts are around utilizing our tools to make sure we tell today's stories. Case in point, the journey and her journey. Those are two products that our nonprofit arm KMG champions, and it's really sort of like an audio and video time capsule of today's successful African American men and women. And it's one of our proudest projects, my proudest project, because we have some amazing men in Memphis, Tennessee, which I believe is the creative capital of the world because it's just amazingly creative. The people are amazingly creative. So being able to capture those stories for me is capturing Black history as it's being created, because these successful people are actually telling who they are, what they've experienced. Pretty much, like I said, it's an audio and video time capsule of what some of today's successful men have done and have accomplished, and what that climb up the mountain has looked like. So I think it's important, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you so much for that, Larry. I'll kick it off to Kirsten if you wouldn't mind taking on the question.
Yeah, definitely. So the work that I do, I like to call myself a Memphis cultural savant. I think I really am a storyteller at heart. I studied journalism at Memphis and did some freelance writing once I graduated, some photography, and I don't know, like just being a native Memphian, I've always had a sense of pride about Memphis and about my story and about the Memphis story. So the work that I get to do now, transitioning from a journalist to a PR professional or a publicist, really is all pretty much in sync. And the work that we do at KQ, our motto is that we do good work for good people. So we first believe that the work that we do and the clients that we do have are really good people, and they do really, really good work. And our service to them is to help amplify the work that they do. And so I am passionate about almost every single client that we have, especially my clients. My clients are the best, from HBCUs to politics to churches to, we recently, we placed a client in Essence magazine. He is a men's mental health practitioner, young guy, born and raised in Memphis. He also went to Central. I was immediately attracted to the work that he does, specifically around Black men's mental health. And so the work that we do in amplifying and maintaining the legacy of Black Memphis, or Black history in Memphis, is work that we thoroughly believe in. And because we're so passionate about it and because I'm so passionate about it. And those stories, I genuinely believe that those stories have to be told. So it's really easy work. It's not hard at all, because we are so in love with Memphis and of course our other clients around the country, but specifically Memphis and getting those stories out to various audiences who we believe deserve to hear it.
I love that. I love that. Shout out to KQ Communications. I see a lot of y'all in the building. I'm gonna kick off to Jared. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us, how are you preserving the legacy of Black history with your role here in Memphis?
Yeah, thanks so much. I've been fortunate to kind of be in a hybrid role with my work at the station, but also with my writing and also with DJing out and about and being an ambassador for Memphis, or being home and being an ambassador for the history of Memphis, its music and its culture. Each month, I write a newsletter for Stax Records, which is a part of the Concord and Craft record family, which holds a lot of various legacy soul and jazz and R&B labels. They're based in Los Angeles. They have the Stax property. I write their newsletter from here, from Memphis, on the ground, where a lot of these stories have happened. Outside of that, doing programming such as our stereo sessions at WYXR, where we have seminars on records from the past that I feel like people have overlooked, that people have missed in Memphis music. Not your Otis Reddings, not your Al Greens, not your Isaac Hayeses, but records like O.T. Sykes, Dr. O.T. Sykes, who is still a practicing dentist in Memphis, who has a legendary music career. Some of these people who you don't hear, you don't see them on marquees, you don't see them in documentaries, you don't read about them in books, but the record is proof that they were here, they had a statement, and that they were interesting and captivating. One of my favorite projects that we did that really opened up the world for me was a night of Memphis music at Lincoln Center in Manhattan. The night before, I DJ'd an all Memphis vinyl set in Brooklyn, and then in Manhattan, it actually began with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks wanted to interview Booker T. Jones and have the Stax Music Academy play, but because of the writer's strike, he decided to leave the country and lay low for a while, and they asked Booker T. Jones who he'd like to fill in to interview him, and I was fortunate that Booker chose me. So that was a great pilot for bringing Memphis music and culture on the road. Just went to the Grammy Awards a couple weeks ago, and I didn't have a huge showcase, but I definitely was an ambassador, shaking hands, letting people know about these stories, letting people know about what's happening right now in Memphis with music and with culture. I mean, you see it with Glorilla, you see it with Dolph, you see it with so many, but there are many of our neighbors in our churches, in the concourse, in our council meetings, these people who are concerned Memphians, who are citizens, who have done things. I'm gonna shout one more name out: Anita Ward, who was an educator for many years after she had "Ring My Bell" be a hit in the summer of 1979. These are the people who I advocate for through my work, through my writing, and through the music that I play when I go out and spin records. But also, I have a front door at Carstown Concourse where we can have these deep conversations. You're muted, Jasmine. We need to hear that voice, Jasmine. Come on now.
My bad. My bad. My bad.
You got it.
Jared, thank you so much. That's really dope with the work that you're doing there at the station. Connie, from your role with the National Civil Rights Museum, I mean, this question, I feel like we can go into depth for maybe 2-3 hours, right? But kind of tell us about, in your role, how you all at the museum preserve Memphis's Black history.
Well, history is storytelling, and we do that, year round. And it's a distinct honor, I feel, to work with a whole core of storytellers from the moment you enter the door and engage with our guest service people who are talking with our guests. They have stories to tell in context of what they're experiencing in the museum. So stories are also being shared, not just being created by the museum at the museum. The oral history projects that we have, we work with a number of institutions here in Memphis to create and collect stories via video. We work with national teams like StoryCorps to present a program of oral history videos. So we want to not only collect them, but preserve them for perpetuity. So they'll be accessible digitally for years to come, for generations to come. Also, I mean, we create stories throughout our year-round programming, whether it's King Day, Freedom Award, where we bring national honorees to the city, and then they infuse by their experiences in Memphis what a story can be told, another firsthand story that can be told about Memphis. And we often get that there's this beautiful surprise that what they find here in Memphis culturally, educationally, on all fronts. So Freedom Award helps us do that and lift our stories up nationally. But just the story of the Memphis civil rights movement itself is one that's not, we advocate for, because it's one that even Dr. King was surprised to see, or he lifted up in his last few days while he was in Memphis. So that's a piece that we tell in documentary films, that we tell in, just our everyday experience in the museum. And we get to share those with some luminaries in the civil rights movement, whether it's the sanitation worker strike, workers who are in my background right now. We're in that season where we're lifting up the labor movement they were a part of that brought Dr. King to Memphis. There are a lot of ways in which even from the activists here in Memphis who were part of the movement that walked alongside Dr. King, whether it's the Lee sisters or a number of civil rights activists who were on the front lines even in the 1950s and 60s. And we see that happening today. There are stories of activists who are creating positive social change in Memphis right now. So lifting those stories up through our programming, inviting them to be our subject matter experts in our programs, that we have always been emphasizing that, and we'll continue to do that.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Growing up in Mississippi, about an hour 30 from Memphis, coming to the Civil Rights Museum when it opened, and even going into like senior year, college, attending, programming there was almost like a history lesson, right? I mean, we had history classes that we attended, but there was something different about being in the space, right? And really hearing firsthand impressions from people who may have been there or their grandparents were there, right? So thank you so much for the work that you all are doing at the Civil Rights Museum to continue and to tell those stories, and also being intentional about making sure that people have a safe space to come in and share their stories as well. For my next question, so I know there's many clients and organizations, we're talking about being intentional about sharing these stories, past, present, and future. So how do you navigate the responsibility of representing Black history authentically, right? We know there's a lot of performative, things out there. So kind of walk us through how you and your role, and even maybe personally, right? Navigating that responsibility and the weight of it, how do you kind of deal with that? And I'll kick it off to Kirsten. Let Kirsten go first.
I knew I was going to be first. I live my life by the truth, and knowing that you can't curate authenticity. It is what it is, or it ain't what it ain't, right? And so in my role, but also personally, I have learned to embrace the hard truth, and not run away from it, no matter what the story is. And the truth is, it's that complicatedness of the story, of the narrative, of the truth that actually more than likely needs to be amplified. And that's where I get to come in as a PR professional, and massage that story into a way or into a form to where we can deliver it. And the client, while not removing anything from the client, right? We're not, hiding anything. We can't, it's so important to just lean into those hard truths, because you can't shame me over something that I've already admitted. And I think what I love about Memphis is that we know the truth, right? Like, we can't run away from our history. And that's really what cements our legacy and our present. And I see sometimes the uncomfortableness in some spaces with trying to accept that truth and trying to figure out, what do we do with this, right? You lean into it. You have to own it. It is what it is. I remember doing work with the Lynching Project. It's a great organization here, led by some really, really good people. And they leaned 100% into that truth, history that I did not know about, from Ida B. Wells to the Four-Way Store and, Lemoyne College, just that section of Memphis and how much history is right there. And we go to Four-Way restaurant now and we enjoy ourselves and we eat, but it's very hard for me to walk by there and not think about that history. But I love how you do see a lot more now, especially in Memphis, people leaning into the hard truths of why we are where we are, and where we're going, and how we utilize that history to leverage our future. So, in my work, I say we lean into the complexity, we lean into the not so pretty stuff. But what comes out of that, I think someone said it before, is this beautiful story that really did stem from the struggle.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Kirsten. Jared, I want to tag you in from your role more as a journalist. Kind of tell us, how do you navigate the responsibility of sharing these stories and, like Kristen said, leaning into that truth?
Well, I'm thinking about what my good friend Sister Cheers has been saying, because and I'm fortunate that I have had the opportunity to work with everyone on the panel, and understand everyone's different styles and how it regards to each client and what their needs may be in a particular moment. I do write a lot about music and Memphis, Stax Records in particular. As a client, there is a bit of a rule about we're going to lean out of controversy. We're going to lean into what these people's impact was, without necessarily stepping on some of the interpersonal relationships, without necessarily teasing out each and every potential socioeconomic quarrel that may be unfolded, because a lot of that is still raw and still tender. And I think that with such a prescient and sort of global cultural cachet that is found in this musical history, a lot of the storytelling is more about the rhythm, more about the beat, and more about allowing people who've never seen Memphis up close to draw an emotional connection to it, that is really rooted in the music and rooted in the influence and impact of the music. Everyone can relate to Hold On, I'm Coming. Everyone can relate to Soul Man, Mr. Big Stuff, Shaft, those sorts of things. Those bring back memories in your own life. And so I have had to lean out of some of those more complicated stories. I've written some long form pieces in the forms of liner notes about our local gospel history, and some of those things we've had to lean out of, but in reverence for the source material and dignifying the source material in a way that is not unrealistic and not a Disney-fied version of the history, but streamlined in a way that can be mainstreamed. And I think of a specific time of the Daily Memphian where we covered. I think this may have even been a KQ account. We covered a charter school's graduation. And this was during the pandemic, so I was filing a story from home, and the photographer had made the lead image for that story a young man celebrating, fanning his money out. And I got a call from the school like, "Hey, brother, could we not make that the lead image?" He was excited. He was just, and I have to think about, my good University of Mississippi journalism training and ethics and how we can minimize harm. How can we responsibly, these are my words. I don't want my words to be represented by an image that maybe doesn't show this young man in the best light. In a very exciting moment, he did something that might have looked a little immature. So it can get complicated. It's tipping on a tightrope. Like Sister Cheers, she put it on one side. Sometimes I have to go way on the other side.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And in that example with the charter school to kind of like put it into, into perspective. Larry, with what you guys do at Kazuki and from an audio visual standpoint, you have so many trailblazers and pioneers when it comes to the movement, civil rights, sports, you name it, right?
Right.
How important is it that they walk into those spaces and before you hit record, it's known like, we're here to share our stories, however raw, authentic, off the record it may be, right? So kind of walk us through that process.
Oh man, and I think you really put a nice encapsulation, so to speak, on that, B, because we kind of look at three things with all the stories we tell, and that's authenticity, context, and making sure they're humane. Um, so when we talking, whether it's R&R and we're talking to Jim Brown, or we were talking with Hank Aaron or Dr. J, we want them to be able to have a safe space to be human. When you talk about our athletes, a lot of them, in the spaces of some of the major outlets, they're still looked at as anything but human, let's put it that way. And so for us, having a space where they can be home and get all the get all the nuances of being with someone that grew up like them, and so on and so forth. I think that adds so much more to what we do, and it adds a lot more responsibility to what we do, because we have to, even when someone says something that we might not think is the best, we have the ability to make an edit. And so giving people the space to be authentic but not damaging, because what happens is they've been damaged so many times, they begin not to be authentic. And so even with Kazuki, and we've been plenty of times where people have said things that have not been necessarily beneficial to their brand or the role they play in our community. We could either play the gotcha moment, or we could be that vehicle that says, you know what, let's make sure we build. It's like the saying goes with a hammer, you can tear down or you can build. And so we choose to do the building part, and because we got plenty of tearing down going on, so we kind of take the responsibility of make sure we build. One more thing I like to say, is that we also play the role where we are looking at ourselves as a megaphone, and it's what we put out there. So since we are distributors in many cases of content and audio and video content that's being created, we look at ourselves as a megaphone, but we also look at ourselves as a mirror, in order to say that this is who we are. In many cases, this is the best of us, is what we try to do more than anything. Is this is the best of us, and this is the most insightful of us, and this is the most creative of us, and so on and so forth. So I hope I answered your question. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I hope it made sense on some level.
Yes, it did. Thank you. Thank you so much, Larry. This kind of segues into the next question. So we're talking about the responsibility of truth telling, how to lean in on that, riding that tight line at times, right? So that comes with challenges, right? So, and this is open for anybody if you want to talk about some of the challenges that you face in your role, right? There may be some upcoming PR journalist students on the line right now. And so what have been some challenges for you in your role when it comes to preserving Black history? And also, if there was a challenge, how were you able to overcome it with that client or, within your organization? not all at once.
Well, I can jump in on it because one of the things I think that has been most challenging for us as a company is having being based in a city that's teetering over 60% African American, let's say that, Black, and I don't think we value our stories at a level that it should be, or the institutions that are perpetuating or actually preserving our stories. I know it's challenging in many ways to with the journey for a lot of the men there to think about it from a standpoint of a historical perspective. I talk about I'm wanting to know, I want my great grandson to know who I am and to be able to really talk about it. So I always talk about Larry the Fifth, Larry Terrell Robinson the Fifth. I want him to know who I was. And the only way we do that is by making sure we leave these breadcrumbs, we leave these stories that allow them to understand where they came from and who they came from. So, and so all of that is real important in how we do and what we do. And that's why, we take it to the nth degree when it comes to telling our story. So for me, the biggest challenge has been um, for Black people in key positions. I'm going to be frank about it. Black people in key positions not understanding the value of who they are, their stories, our stories, and the person and the present, preservation of those stories. And if that mentality was able to just be adjusted a little bit, I think Memphis would thrive in a way that it would not even realize, because it's the genesis of so many vital stories to the history of the people in this country.
Yeah, I'm glad, Larry, that you mentioned that, because I was sort of ruminating on that, trying to talk myself into whether or not that viewpoint, from my perspective, was valid, and a similar, if not the exact same viewpoint. I spent a lot of time in my early career trying to convince hip hop artists that I grew up listening to and understanding as a part of our local lexicon, that they were a part of history and that it was time to tell their story from that viewpoint. And I mean, I really caught hell from people, I can think of, like Your Player Flies, who I think is probably one of the most incredible storytellers as far as lyricism is concerned, from this city, from South Memphis. His father sang in a doo-wop group with William Bell, and I mean, all of these very interesting stories. And he was raised in the Nation of Islam, and I mean, like, okay, where does the information and your lyricism, where does it come from? Can you please help me to understand the folkways that influence this incredible journey that you've taken us through in your music? And it took so long for me to get a lot of these guys comfortable to share their stories. And now it's almost like we're behind the curve with the way that the globe has responded to Memphis music, excuse me, Memphis hip hop particularly, because we've seen this happen. You almost would hope that, as you mentioned, your generation, just in your family, you want your great grandson to know about what happened in your life. You would think we would learn to break this curse. We've seen it happen with jazz, with blues, with R&B, with soul, rock and roll, and it keeps happening. And we see these global influential people latch on to our very colloquial, folk mainstays, monetize them, monetize the practice, reinterpret it, and allow people to think that they are originators in that space. and then turn back around and sell the stories of the people who really originated it, sell it back to us and you know this thing. And so that's been a challenge for me, is to catch all of these people who truly know the truth before they're unable to tell their story. You know, the extreme version of that is, you know, I had to write the obituary of John Gary Williams from the Mad Lads before I could interview him to really tell his story from his perspective. And I don't want to be writing the obituary. I'd rather be writing the feature and giving these people their flowers while they're here.
Awesome.
Wow. Connie, Kirsten, y'all have any
Yeah, I do. And I'll tag on to the authenticity question as well. As a museum, we're an institution who it is incumbent upon us to be accurate, not just authentic. And so I think part of that is just making sure with primary sources, whatever tools we have, whether it be technology or, you know, the actual artifacts, that those are the ways that we present the story authentically. But we also have to be careful not to romanticize, especially this type of history. It's not an easy history to digest. And so the thing is to make sure that we tell the full truth, that it wasn't everybody in the movement. It wasn't a kumbaya moment. There were struggles internally and externally, but the focus was always on a primary goal, and that's equality and freedom for all people. And I think that also raises the challenge of making sure we include more stories than just one perspective, that there diversity in the storytelling from different groups. So my truth may be different from yours, but it's still part of the whole story that's truthful and accurate. But to answer this question too, the part of that challenge creates this whole space where we're facing pushback. Let's just be real. There have been policies around censorship and telling this story around civil and human rights and the Black experience. So I think that is the thing that, as an institution of truth and information, from misinformation, it's a challenge enough to get the story out without being censored. But on top of that, there's this erroneous message that's being said about the work that we do and the stories that we tell. So it's a double whammy, if you will. And so as professionals, we have to stay the course, stay focused on telling the story, and utilize every aspect of new technology, new people, new audiences to help us tell this story in a different way that reaches a new generation. You just got to use all the tools in our toolbox.
Yeah, I will take a slight pivot. And while I do agree that it is a challenge to tell our story sometimes and our history sometimes, what I have found, however, is that another challenge, big challenge, is also realizing that there is power in telling our stories around our future, right? So I think preserving our Black history also coincides with leveraging our Black future. There are so many great things happening just in Memphis, around Black Memphis, and I have to push back a little bit and say I think the history is getting out there. I think what we don't necessarily lean into enough is the nuance. There are so many things happening that I think we just embracing a new narrative, right? That there is a narrative shift and that Memphis does deserve a narrative shift. Our history, it is what it is, and we can't shy away from it. But how has that catapulted us into not just where we are now, but where we're going? I have to give credit to Mayor Paul Young and just the momentum and the swag that he's brought just into this culture right now. We've heard the stories, right, of Mayor Harrington, and we know the history of Mayor AC Wharton. But we also gotta give, Mayor Young his feature as well when his time comes. You know, we hear the stories of Carolyn Hardy, right? And this, you know, Black woman powerhouse entrepreneur. But her daughter, Whitney Hardy, is also killing the game, right? We know the history of Ida B. Wells, but Wendy Thomas is also killing the game here in 2025 with MLK 50. We know the history of the civil rights movement, and I think we have to keep telling that history, and we have to keep directing people to the National Civil Rights Museum because it's important. Also, we have Black LGBTQIA folks and Black pride in this city that happens, I believe in June or in September. I think they have like 2 events that does not get a lot of media spotlight, right? We have communities of Black immigrants or undocumented folks, right? Who are also, you know, living in this time of fear, right? And so like we have to we have to do both. You know, we have to have the hammer. We got to build, but we also got to have the pen too, where we write the new narratives. And Memphis is, and also, you know, so I think the challenge for me, what I've seen is, you know, getting people to recognize that there are some new narratives out there that also contribute to the greatness of our history, and they're happening right here, right now.
Wow. I'm taking notes, so I'm writing down a lot of the quotes that you all are saying, and I'm learning something as well when we're talking about Memphis. As not a Memphis native, but hearing you all sharing your perspectives have been very, very enlightening. And I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. This wasn't one of our questions, but I feel confident that we can have conversation around this. So we know what's happening right now in this country. It's been a little interesting, right? And so you're seeing these headlines. You're seeing all these different, you know, takes of what's happening, what's going to happen. You know, fear is being instilled, confusion being well, it is being instilled. One of the things that I love about PRSA is that they stand 10 toes about what they believe in, with their mission. And so if you're a PRSA member, you probably got an email or saw where they put out a statement saying that they are, you know, defending their DNI efforts, right? They are 100% behind, you know, those who have, voices may not be heard necessarily, and making sure that PR professionals in their organization feel like they have a place where they can go to. So as communicators, as PR professionals, you know, considering all that's happening right now in our landscape, how are you feeling? Right? Does this affect how you are going into your work day in, day out? What are the conversations that you're having with your clients about the current landscape here in the country?
Well, I'll just say that I don't consider anybody on this panel a DEI hire. We all earn where we are, and I'm sure many people on this call. So when it comes to DEI, though, DEI is important, and it's important to just our institutions. As far as how my clients and how we at KQ have these conversations, we stand 10 toes that we, you know, I have one client in particular, I laugh. He said, I ain't worried about that. You know, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing, right? And so I appreciate the boldness in this season, in this time that we're taking, many people are taking. And then at the same time, we do see that there are some folks who are rolling things back. But you know, I'm not shaken by it. I think we kind of knew what was coming down the pike. And we just got to keep going. Again, we are all hard workers on this call. And you know, all smart, all intelligent, you know, earn where we are. We just got to keep on going. So, you know, I try not to dwell on the negative, and just embrace the fact that, you know, I am where I am because I worked hard to get here. And I know some other great folks who are, you know, striving, pushing forward. and protecting their people in the process. So.
Yeah, I think it hasn't necessarily come to my doorstep yet, but I certainly work with coworkers who are frazzled, come in frazzled, but I ain't scared yet. Um, and you know, I think my position, my legacy as a Black American on this day, on this Black History Month, is that we're gonna find a way. I've always watched people find a way. My mother's logged on the call. She always found a way. We always found a way as a family. And so that's just how I move. Like, you know, a way up, a way through, a way around, a way under. And so I lean on the people in the community who inspire me, like a Mayor Paul Young, like the Lee sisters, like Ekpe Abioto, like everyone on this panel who, you know, anytime I see Larry, we gonna dap it up, and he's gonna give me some confidence and inspire me and see something in me that I didn't see in myself. Connie poured into me just recently. I call her Kirby. I've been trying to hold back. I've been calling her Sister Cheers. We call her Kirby. She's always gonna show me love. That's my new cousin. We are always pushing each other through.
Yeah, we kind of related. We found out recently we got some mutual family members. So
Yeah, so we leaning on each
that's
other.
cousin JB.
Yeah. Jazz, you're my sister from college. We pushing through. And even folk that ain't Black. I see Terry on the call. Terry always hyping me up. I appreciate everybody for hyping me up and keeping me on my path. So I'm gonna stay on my path because I have y'all to thank for helping me to get here, but also for encouraging me through. And anything I can do to encourage everybody else, you know, we are all in this together. And so that's what it's gonna mean. That's what it's gonna take, and that's what Memphis is about. And you know, y'all ain't gonna get me emotional on here, but we're gonna keep carrying each other through.
I'd like to say that it has strengthened our resolve, and the camaraderie that I see on this call today just shows how important it is, and why staying focused on what we've been focused on all this time. Before it was an acronym. We've been doing this work for a while, y'all, and so there's no reason to give up now. And so I think we're not threatened by it. We're holding fast to the work we've always done, and we'll support everyone else who's doing that work too.
Well, first of all, I think we all need to stop saying the acronym. I think it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Which part are you not in favor of? So, I mean, I think we do it a disservice. We do ourselves a disservice by throwing around the acronym when we get to just gloss over it. So, for us, as communicators, I want to make sure I understand and I get a good understanding of when I am faced with individuals that have an issue with quote unquote DEI. Well, help me understand what part of it do you not like? And I think as we begin to say the words more and more, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which part do you not like? Which part do you? And then I think as people, one thing how it's affected my life is I'm voting with my dollars. I'm voting with my dollars. I am not going to spend money in a place that I am not welcome, or diversity, equity, and inclusion are being questioned. I'm not going to vote with my dollar for you to stay in business. It's as simple as that, And so it's not just a part of my business, it's a part of how I think we as a people need to look at going forward and how we support one another and how we support those entities that are here for our service, or want our service, or want our dollars. So it's more than just my business or the work we do. It's how I think we as a people are going to have to think about, and when I say as a people, I mean as Black people and people that are marginalized have to think about how we move forward and really be able to help amplify those organizations that are working to support our communities and treat us with the respect and honor that any of us deserve. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you all for your words and answering that question with wow, I was hesitant about asking a question, but I remember talking with Connie, before we did this, and the purpose of us coming together for moments like this is to be able to share how we're feeling as not just communicators, but just humans, right? It's a lot going on, right? So thank you all for answering the questions and giving your feedback. I have one more question. And then if anyone has questions that they would like to add for a Q&A, go ahead and drop them in the chat. So looking towards the future. So how can we ensure that the rich history of Memphis continues to be preserved and celebrated for generations, right? I think the bulk of us on this call are millennials. Some might be the generation above, but I've been thinking about a whole lot lately. The youngins, which sounds so crazy to say, the youngins who are underneath us, right? How are we passing the torch to them, especially in this communications industry? And I'll let anybody start with that one.
I think the most important thing is developing and finding voice and not being afraid of that. It took me a long time. It took me a while in my career before I was comfortable with typing the one simple word, that's I. What do I believe in? What do I want? What is the world that I would like to live in? Who are the people that I would like to collaborate with? Who are the mentors that I would seek out and ask for help? And all of those decisions and all of those statements, those I statements help to develop that voice. And you know, I, that's on more of a universal heady kind of concept. But just being from Memphis or being in Memphis, your voice starts to change. That accent starts to creep out, and I've noticed, over the past few years, we've gotten that kind of notoriety for our voice and the way we say things, the way we put things, and not being afraid to do it authentically. When I go to conferences, I'm starting to notice people want to hear me say something again. It used to be, you could pick out somebody from like New Orleans or, Jamaica or something like that. But they're like, no, you from Memphis. I want to hear, how would you say this? How would you put this? What do you think about this? And people want Memphis to weigh in. And that's only going to amplify. That's only going to grow exponentially as we continue to share our stories authentically. People are going to want to hear our voice in these conversations. And so that would be my message to the next generation, is to define your voice, your personal voice, and to encompass the voice of your community and truly be, as Larry's mentioned earlier, to be a megaphone to amplify that.
I think I'll just jump in and say everyone on this panel is great, but I think in an effort to preserve and to ensure that our history is preserved for generations to come, who is directly under me on this Zoom call is Miss Carolyn Banks. I think you need to get a group of y'all together and take a tour of Memphis. I accidentally took a tour. My dad was on, it was his, I don't know what they was doing. Hamilton High was having something. Y'all know, Hamilton, Melrose, Cobb, all them always doing something. And so he invited me to take to join them. And I had no idea what it was going to be. So one early Saturday morning, we met downtown at close to the pyramid, the visitor center. And she pulled up with her van. And I was like, what's going on here? Dad, what are we doing? And I had such a good time. I learned things, I saw things about Memphis that I had not seen, I did not know, even growing up here. And she really, really gives you an experience. And I think we have the National Civil Rights Museum. there was nothing like growing up and taking a field trip to the National Civil Rights Museum, and to see the way that it's expanded over the years in my lifetime. I'm so proud of it, and I always enjoy going. And I say add a tour of possibilities to your real life Memphis education download. You gotta take a tour. There's nothing, I'm a visual learner. And to just, integrate yourself and engulf yourself into an experience like that, with someone who is as knowledgeable and as personable as Miss Carolyn, I think you do yourself a great service, a great deal of service, to take her up on that opportunity. So, get your teams together, your PR teams, get together, y'all put some money up or whatever, and jump on the bus, jump on the van, and charge your phone, and it's a really, really good experience. So, thank you, Miss Carolyn. I can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. For us, I mean, I think I kind of approach things in the Memphis from a Memphis perspective as a native versus a transplant. Being a transplant, I think we have a different lens, and so what I see as an amazing city, and I see the creativity of the individuals here. Just case in point, you think about going to, let's say you go to Triple Rock Christian, Missionary Baptist Church, and you see a young lady sing and she just blowing it out, just amazing. And in Memphis, it's a norm. It's a norm that the talent is so pervasive. It's everywhere. Well, being a transplant, you come in and go like, oh my God, look at this. Look at what I found. And so for me, it's always sharing that with the young and next generation and saying, man, do y'all realize what you're walking through? The history, the talent, the same people that walk these same streets as you, that person walked the same street. So it's for us, it's just trying to share that love for this jewel I found upon moving here 28 years ago. So sharing that and helping individuals, especially young people, understand how amazing and holy these grounds are, is a part of my way of giving back, and then ultimately sharing those stories across the world is a part of our way of giving back to not just the next generation, but generations forever.
I agree with all my colleagues. The only thing I would add is that, especially as we approach our renovation of our legacy building, we are geared toward that next generation of learners. And so wherever they are, however they learn, that's how we're presenting that story, so that not only does it no longer becomes dated, it becomes relevant. We want to hear from them also, so that they know their stories in this very moment is important. It is contribute to the history we're making today. And so I would, just implore, all our communicators, especially at the museum, to make sure that we're telling that story from their perspective, so they feel engaged and want to tell their next generation after them.
Wow. Thank you all so much for your insight just throughout this entire panel. I'm full and I'm very inspired, and I think this was a very timely conversation. And I think all of us feel a little bit more at ease after having this conversation. I'm gonna ask if anyone does have any questions for any of our panelists. If you would drop it in the chat. And while we're gathering some questions, I'm gonna ask for the panelists if they have any last comments, feedbacks, anything that's on their heart to share. Now you can do that now. I'm gonna pick. Larry, how about you?
How about me? What?
Any last words?
Oh,
Yeah.
man, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this such an illustrious panel of talented communicators in our community. Um, I am honored to literally be a part of this community, and hopefully through the work that we do at Kazukian and KMG, it's indicative of that. And I hope you guys hold us to another standard, because we're trying to reach a greater and higher standard. And anytime we can be a part of these kinds of conversations, edifying our community and the people that have been here and those that have come after us, and those that are with us now. I want to, say, be a part of it, and say thank you for that. So, last words, man, let's keep pushing forward, and remember, vote with your dollars. Oh, and one more thing, Boys of Color Conference, March 29th, the Agri Center. If you got a young man between the grades of 3 and 12, make sure you go to the Gents League .org and register that boy. And for those big people that got money, please share a little bit and register and sponsor a boy to come to the conference. So that'll be my shameless plug.
I just want to say shout out to Larry. He gave me my first podcasting opportunity right out of college. And yeah, just good people, and just want to encourage, if there's any students or new PR folks, journalists on the call, just encourage you to work laterally. Sometimes we do want to work with the folks at the top. And there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of opportunities come when you just work with people who are right beside you. So that's it.
Jared.
I'm good. I think I said everything that was on my spirit. I appreciate you. Hey, Carolyn. Carolyn, I'm glad you got some flowers. Laura, Faith, wonderful to see you, everybody. Renee Malone has been incredible to me in my career. Thank you so much. And all of the KQ people that I see on the call. Yep, everybody. Hope everybody's staying warm.
Thanks, Jared. And last but not least, Connie, you have any last thoughts?
I want to just reiterate what our illustrious panelists have already said. There are some powerful voices on this call right now doing some phenomenal work. I've had the privilege and the honor of working with several of you, and those who I haven't, I look forward to doing so in the future. The museum will be creating those opportunities as we prepare to reopen our legacy building and our Founders Park, to invite you all to be a part of that storytelling. We'll host various media tours that we want you to come and tell stories from a Memphis perspective on why these landmarks are important. And while I'm doing shameless plugs, the museum is opening the Bay at Ruston exhibition on March 28th. This is a phenomenal coup for the museum. We've purchased a large portion of his collections, his personal artifacts, his documents, his strategies. I mean, it's going to be phenomenal. And we invite you to the opening on March 28th. Of course, we'll be remembering Dr. King on the day that he was slain on April 4th, but there's going to be a new twist. So we hope you'll join us for that while we remember the history that was made in Memphis and the conversion from a tragedy to a triumph. There are so many things that the Memphis has maybe not dealt with, but there are new storytellers who are talking about how this changed their lives in a positive way. So there is a flipped script, if you will, on this occasion, and we hope that you'll join us for that. But I just want to reiterate that I'm inviting everyone on this call, anyone in PRSA, to be a part of the museum storytelling, because you all are the ones that make sure that the truth is told. So I invite you to be there.
Nice mic drop. Thank you. Thank you so much, Connie. And before we go, I definitely want to, again, thank the National Civil Rights Museum for being our partner for today. We truly, truly, truly appreciate all of the work. And I am confident we will be able to come inside the space soon. So people will be able to come in person, especially those who have not been, especially members of the organization. We would love to, make that happen. A couple of upcoming events for PRSA. We do have a member roundtable dinner that's happening on Thursday, February 27th, and the focus will be around social media. So if you're working at an agency, if you're a social media manager, if you're in-house anywhere and you're working in the digital department, we would love to have you come out and join us. So definitely check out our website to reserve your spot. We'll also have another member roundtable on Tuesday, March 18th, and that will center around media and news. So Jared, your colleagues over at the radio station will be inviting other members of the media to join some PRSA members, so we can all come together in fellowship. And then the last event for March that's coming up is a mixer. So there will be a spring mixer at Rock and Dough on Thursday, March 27th, from about 5:30 to 8 o'clock. So basically happy hours. You can go to our website, check out all of our events, reserve your spot. And last but not least, if you are not a member of PRSA Memphis, we do have a special going on right now where you can get $100 off your membership using promo code network25. If you have questions about how to become a member, feel free to shoot us a DM, email. You can find myself. We'll make sure that you get involved. But if all hearts and minds are clear, I thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We didn't have any drop-offs. So everyone who logged in, they logged in and they were in tune and engaged the whole entire time. So I really appreciate that. And if there's anything that PRSA Memphis can do for anybody, just let us know. And thanks again, everyone.